Please take your seats, if you can manage to find one, but I hope it will be feasible. Mr. Minister, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, welcome to the 37th Euroheat and Power Congress, District Heating in a Connected World. Indeed, we are very glad the Estonian Association proposed us to host this Congress, and it's a real pleasure to be here in the beautiful city of Tallinn for this kind of family event. A larger and larger family we are, actually. More than 300 of us registered for it. We come from 33 different countries, and I would like to express special thanks to those coming from far away. South Korea, with 17 delegates, impressive. China, the United States, Mongolia. Now, here I want to make it clear that I do not place the United States somewhere between China and Mongolia. This is just the order of the number of delegates which were sent. So, Mongolia and Qatar. So, that's great. And the podium is Estonia first, of course, and then Finland. Finland already came second last year in Brussels, so, you know, they are quite persistent here. And number 3 is Germany, so 3 Baltic states, if you may say so, elaborating on what I said yesterday evening at our function. So, EHP members, as such, come from associations, national associations, utilities, manufacturers, consultancy and advisory firms, but our family goes far beyond this, and many of the family have joined us today: the Commission, the International Energy Agency and other energy agencies, regional authorities, cities, academics, and so on. Thank you, thank all of you. And last but not least, I will not forget our sponsors, without whom such an event would not be possible. Many things have happened since our last Congress in Vienna 2 years ago. Last year, at our convention in Brussels, we could already see some signs of it. The European Parliament had recognized the role of heat and the importance of the sector in decarbonizing energy in Europe. And the Commission had explicitly highlighted district heating and cooling among the investment priorities, and this was already translating into concrete measures, the kind of measures we like, actually. We like nice words, but we also like concrete measures, especially regarding state aids. But what we can build on today is something of a different scale. And the best symbol of it is this picture behind me. You know, doesn't it look nice? I mean, for those knowing Brussels and the European district of Brussels, have you ever seen such a beautiful building? I mean, it's inspiring, isn't it? And, you know, you could have dreamed of such a thing 2 years or a little before, 2 years ago or a little before. So indeed, what happened was that in February, the European Commission convened, and this is a picture of it, its first time high-level conference on heating and cooling, not on gas, electricity, oil, you know, on heating and cooling, and their role, as is written here, in the European energy transition. On the very same day, it released its communication on the energy union, which is going to be the overarching concept upon which the European energy policy is to be built in the coming years. And of course, this is not a coincidence. And it is not, especially as the communication itself announces an upcoming European strategy on heating and cooling before the end of the year. And this simply means that, at last, our message got through. The fundamentals are now widely known and shared, and not only shared by us. And these fundamentals you know well, of course. 42% of the EU's final energy consumption is heat, 28% for transport and 21% for electricity. More than half of the energy is lost between primary energy supply and end use. And as a matter of fact, the fundamental benefit of modern district heating is to make use of such energy, of that kind of energy. Local energy sources that otherwise would be wasted, would remain unused. We do use 60% of recycled energy and 20% of renewables today in our district heating schemes across Europe. And this is why, in the recent words of Commissioner Cañete, heat must be at the center of the European energy policy. And this is not only true of the Commission. Not very far away from here, in Riga, on the 15th of April, so that's not a long time ago either, there was a meeting of European energy ministers dealing with energy efficiency, heating and cooling, and this included, among other things, but not so many other things actually, promoting district heating as an efficient solution involving cities as holders of a significant potential for use. Isn't this nice? And you could also even see, for the engineers, there are some in the room, you could also see in this paper prepared for ministers an integrated approach to the energy systems, connecting heating and electricity. You know, exactly the kind of things we were arguing for a few years ago. So it's great news because instead of us saying you ought to take into consideration heating and cooling, which is important, now it's them saying we must put it at the center. Of course, the challenge there is that there's much more ahead. There's no rest for us. It's an accomplishment, but it's not a final accomplishment. We have much more to do. But before I come to this, let me try and reflect with you upon what made it possible. How is it that we could get there? I think that one not negligible reason is that there is a great team doing what I would call a jolly good job at Euroheat and Power Office in Brussels under the leadership of Paul Voss. And that was rather a matter for yesterday's General Assembly, but still I would like to join me in a round of applause for them because really they did make a great job. Thank you to them. Another obvious reason, but let's not forget it because we tend to forget sometimes obvious things. They are too obvious. Another obvious reason is that this did not come, by chance. It's the result of, it was built on many years of continuous progress and contributions by all of you. And no better example, it's just an example if you like, but it's an extremely important example, no better example than our sponsoring of Heat Roadmap Europe. Heat Roadmap Europe is not ours, it's the baby of Aalborg University, Arnstadt University and Ecofys Germany, but we did sponsor it. And the result of Heat Roadmap Europe was that it robustly demonstrated that more district heating is feasible and would greatly benefit to the European Union. So you know that by heart, so I won't stay a long time on it, but we must remember that Heat Roadmap Europe was instrumental in opening doors which had remained closed despite lots of efforts. And I think we must remember the lesson, and now we know the way. Next time we stumble on roadblocks, let's use a similar pattern because it does work. Of course, Heat Roadmap Europe itself builds on previous studies, especially within the International Energy Agency I mentioned before, and we've benefited from a long-standing partnership with the IEA. Studies, statistics, demonstrations do pay off, in the long term. So thanks to all the hidden contributors all these years long. I would also like to say that, of course, this is not only true of Europe, and on a global scale, I would like to refer to the recent publications by the United Nations Environment Programme of its report, which is titled District Energy in Cities, Unlocking the Potential of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. I prefer to read it because it's not so nice reading things like that, you know. Sometimes I'm not sure it's real, so I read it and I see, yes, it is. And it's a great piece of work, and you can find lots and lots of examples in it. And another interesting pattern is that it was built bottom up. They did something very simple. They just asked themselves, so I'm going to read again because I was, you know, saying it in simple words. Now I'm going to use their words, which are more elaborate, but which are more precise. So what they did is they surveyed low-carbon cities worldwide to identify the key factors underlying their success in scaling up energy efficiency and renewable energy, as well as in attaining targets for zero or low greenhouse gas emissions. And what they found out is that all these low-carbon cities had in common was the use of district heating and putting a lot of hopes into district heating evolution to reach zero carbon in a recent amount of time. And this translates into their verbiage into district energy systems emerge as a best practice approach for providing a local, affordable, and low-carbon energy supply. I like to read such things. And again, this is due to your cooperation all these years long. Thanks again. Thanks for these exceptional cooperation. And let's remember the lesson, which is that policymakers are open and wise enough, and our sector is strong enough to make our voice heard and for us to have a useful influence on the evolution of the political environment. But okay, now let's do it. And so I come to the more challenging part of my speech, which, as you remember, is much more ahead. Because, of course, the world has not changed just because of this, well, just disappears, just because of this nice poster on a building in Brussels. The world has not changed just because of 3 days in Brussels, and we want to change it, the energy world, I mean. Initiating such a debate on EU level has been a long-held ambition of ours, but it never was an ambition in itself. What we wanted to do was opening the minds on the potential contribution of district heating to address the EU's broader energy and environmental, let alone strategic and economic ambitions. And of course, these ambitions are incredibly challenging, and they are of the sort which is not going to disappear in the course of time to evaporate and leave place to other European political goals. As we come closer to the so-called COP21, the December Paris-hosted conference on climate change aimed at setting the right mechanisms to put the world on track to stay within the 2 degrees increase of the global temperature, it will be more and more appealing to all stakeholders that what we have to deal with is a long-lasting priority for the world. As for us, we know that there is no single solution to the energy environmental challenges, but we also know that district heating and cooling can provide lots of them, best fit from individual circumstances. And indeed, more and more stakeholders not only regard district heating and cooling as a key asset in the energy transition, but also, which is new, great, they bring their contribution for it to come to fruition. And so it's not only that we are better heard, it is also that new ideas come, both from inside our community and also from beyond our traditional community, and enrich what we can offer. And again, this is just great. Of course, our major strength is also a weakness. It is the fact that district heating is at local level. And therefore, because we are local, we are neither at state level, where political targets are set, neither at individual levels, which is more and more important in today's world, and we'll try to address this later in this conference. We are at city level, at district level, by definition, but a tremendously important fact is that, as a matter of fact, energy consumption essentially occurs at city level. So how can renewables and energy efficiency be delivered to the heart of cities? Well, I already addressed that. I told you what UNEP found out. The interesting thing there is that I'm not going to say every day, it would be a kind of exaggeration, but I think I can say more often than every month, a new important city in the world looks at district heating and cooling and finds out that it's going to be the solution for it to reach its goals. And I will just quote one, Amsterdam in the recent days. Amsterdam, which is today covered by district heating at the level of 10%, so not that important. They want to expand it to 40% within 25 years. And they say that we think district heating can create a 100% decarbonized energy network. Would you have believed it? You know, Amsterdam, for those knowing the city. So, good news ahead. And they also say, and that's a kind of Dutch pragmatism, I guess, many end users, so back to end users, to individuals, many end users may have no interest in sustainability. It's interesting because we know that a lot of Dutch people do have a lot of interest in sustainability. But though the city of Amsterdam takes into account the fact that many may not have. Many end users may not have no interest in sustainability like cities and governments do, but they will be interested in a cheap price for a reliable product. And there, of course, our joint experience is exceptional because it's so embedded in local reality. It is the kind which is requested in these times of change. You know, people come and say, district heating won't work. Well, it does. You know, district heating is not fit for small towns. Well, in Denmark, there are so many, and they started not by under state directions, but by cooperation locally. So just come and have a look. District heating is not fit for individual housing. Well, in Finland, there's a significant amount of them, so please come and have a look. District heating is not fit for old, large, historic cities. Well, as a matter of fact, the district cooling scheme in Paris, which is the first one in Europe, I know Stockholm is the first one as well, so the other first one in Europe, it started only 25 years ago. And Paris was already a reasonably large and reasonably historical city. So, you know, please come and have a look. You know, I don't want all these guys visiting only Baltic countries, so I want some of them in. These are just examples, of course. You can find plenty of them everywhere. I could carry on for hours, but I won't. The idea is just that each of us can contribute both by acting locally and sharing globally what he does. And we'll have hundreds of opportunities of such initiatives in the forthcoming years. The program of the Congress, I'm drawing close to my conclusion, the program of the Congress tries to address these new issues our sector should address. For years and years, I repeat again, our priority has been the claim that heating as such should be given due consideration. So today we should almost forget about it, not entirely forget about it, but almost forget about it and enter a new, more sophisticated phase maybe, where we need to set in more details the nature and the extent of the contribution we can make. In a word, how to drive the shift from the potential to reality. And this translates into multiple questions, many of which we will address in these 2 days. We will start with a panel debate. Sustainable cities need sustainable heat, which will more thoroughly address what I've touched on a little earlier. This panel will be moderated by Kristen from the Financial Times. I don't know him yet, but I know he's a bright guy. I can say it without hesitation. And the reason for that is that a while ago he wrote a very clear and very sensible paper about district energy in the Financial Times. So I'm looking forward to this session, and I would urge you to actively participate in all sessions and get the most out of them. And now I come to my conclusion, which you already know. This is a time of change and progress. We've opened new gates. We have the opportunity to fully play our role. This is incredibly challenging, but we have the capability to make it happen. But this is my conclusion, and, well, nobody cares about my conclusion. The important thing is our conclusion as a whole. So I'm going to ask you. As you remember, Heat Roadmap Europe, back to Heat Roadmap Europe, was based on comparing the future that the Commission had drawn to a future with 30% district heating in 2030 and 50% in 2050. And the idea again was to show that it was possible and it was better. So remember, 30% in 2030, 50% in 2050. I won't speak about 2100. So the questions are these targets ambitious? Yes. Come on, I want you to answer. Are these targets ambitious? Yes. Good. So you're ready now. Are they realistic? Yes. Are they desirable, needed? Yes. Are we going to make it? Yes, we are going to make it, of course. Well, I can see you are ready. So thank you to you all, members, to the district heating community as a whole. Thank you for your support. I would like again to warmly thank you not only for your contribution these past 2 years, but also for the friendly atmosphere that came with it and that we can feel in this room, and which made a pleasure to take up new challenges and which will make again a pleasure to take up this huge challenge we have in front of us. I feel cooperation between Euroheat and Power and its members and the community has never been so deep, and looking at the results, I can only hope that we grow it again. We have the same sort for the coming 2 years before our next Congress. Indeed, we are going to live exciting time together. And now I have the privilege to introduce Mr. Kristen Michal, who will honor us with an address. Mr. Michal is the Minister of Economic Affairs and Infrastructure of the Republic of Estonia. He has enjoyed a bright political career, among which I'll pick just 1 or 2 elements. He previously served as the Minister of Justice, and he was several times a member of the Riigikogu, the Estonian Parliament. I do it as I can. So, dear Minister, you know by now that you are going to speak to a lively and happy assembly of professionals dedicated to a better energy world who are eager to learn about your views. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Frédéric. The end of this remarks reminded me a little bit like a party congress. Everybody was very positive and saying that, yes, we will do it. So I hope we will do it. But a few points to open this event. During the last months, the issue of sustainable heating and cooling has found a new breathing in whole European Union. The published Energy Union strategy stands firm on its 5 pillars and is an excellent platform to facilitate refurbishments to the heating and cooling regulation. The debate regarding more efficient and sustainable heating and cooling has found high support throughout the European Union and will definitely influence the actions in the field of heating and cooling in the rest of the Europe. Furthermore, hopefully our efforts in this sector will be an example to the rest of the world. In this aspect, the 37th Euroheat and Power Congress in Tallinn is timed perfectly to discuss the future of district heating and cooling. Looking and knowing the participants list, I am glad to see that this conference has brought together such wide expertise of market players and shareholders, policymakers and regulators. Tallinn, the capital of Estonia, as a host, is a perfect example of effective use of district heating. The city uses nearly 37% of the total district heating consumption in Estonia. Tallinn also gets 1/3 of its district heating from one of the most efficient CHPs in the world, Tallinn Electricity Power Plant. In 2013, its efficiency was 100.7%. 42% of the district heating in Tallinn is produced from renewable fuels. In the nearest years, the share of renewables will be nearly 100%. In those aspects, Tallinn is a perfect example of the development of a district heating area. The share of district heating in Estonia is 70% of the total heat demand. This share is high even for the Nordic countries, not to mention Europe as a whole. With the development of nearly zero energy houses and local heating technologies, the sector of district heating has an increasing incentive to become more and more competitive compared to local heat production. Furthermore, a decreasing heat consumption is a reality that the heating companies have to take into account when planning future investments into energy infrastructure, and this already today. At the same time, it must be clear that district heating must function as widely as possible according to market rules. This will help to benefit the lowest possible price for the end consumers. Dependence from imported fuels in district heating is increasing. The competition in the heating market is getting tighter, and as mentioned before, the consumption of heat is decreasing. These are the issues that the district heating companies need to face and cope with already today. I believe that one of the keys to a functioning and developed heating sector is a secure fuel supply that can be guaranteed best throughout utilizing non-important fuels. By 2030, Estonia strives towards producing 80% of its heating from domestic biofuels. I hope this will be of some example to the rest of Europe. I'm sure I do not have to stress the importance of using CHPs to the largest extent possible. Not only that CHPs provide greater fuel economy and efficiency in producing energy and cooling, it also contributes to distributed generation of electricity and thus to greater energy security. We need to make sure that district heating and cooling are ensured in a sustainable and efficient manner, taking into account the needs of the customer and providing the lowest possible cost for the customer. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope this Congress will be a platform for a fruitful discussion and sharing of case practices. In future, the future of district heating and cooling provides numerous tasks that need solving in order to contribute to a sustainable, competitive and efficient district heating and cooling that can offer the best price available for the consumer. So I thank you once again. I hope, as you said, everything is possible, and have a nice day in Tallinn, in Estonia. You're welcome. Thank you.